Awesome. Perfect. Let's jump right into it. Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Of
I'm
course.
really excited and I'm really grateful that you took time out to, well, for this conversation. And let's jump right into it. I would just like let you introduce yourself. Like, hey, Brad, what's up? What do you do? How do you?
Yeah, I'm Brad Milne, and I'm a co-founder of an application called SupplierHQ, which is the world's first, only, and best database of high-ticket suppliers for store owners who are building high-ticket e-commerce shops.
Awesome. Perfect. And how did you come up with the idea for Supplier HQ? What was the inception like?
Yeah, my colleague runs a fairly large e-commerce coaching program, and so he and I were discussing potential ideas to build software that would be useful to the students in his coaching programs. He had a ton of students joining every single month, and they were all facing very similar, blocks in their journey, mainly to do with finding suppliers for their stores, evaluating suppliers for their stores, and ultimately reaching out to those suppliers to become authorized resellers of products. And so, we had discussed a bunch of different ideas, but we landed on Supplier HQ as probably the application we could build that would serve the greatest number of his students.
Got you. Makes sense. And we also had some constraints when we were coming up with the idea, finalizing the idea, right? We had, I think, half a dozen ideas, and we were trying to build something which could be built in, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. That was our original timeline. That hey, we want something to be built in 6 to 8 weeks for the widest group of people in the coaching program. I think that was one of the.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. We wanted to, in classic, startup fashion, we wanted to prove the product market fit of something as quickly as possible. And so, yeah, we had about, I think, 6 to 8 ideas, and obviously, Rohan, you helped us document, put on a graph exactly where all those would fit in a typical student's customer journey as a student of one of the courses. And yeah, we wanted to get something out the door. Every single day people join these coaching programs, and every single day new students run into these same issues. And so, it was aggressive, but we wanted something out the door in 6 to 8 weeks in time for, Black Friday and Cyber Monday here in the US.
Hmm, got you. Makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about the timeline for the MVP from inception, finalizing the idea to the point where, let's say, we had users and we were like profitable, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is probably, I mean, this is the thing that I'm happiest with of all of it. The idea was really floating around in very rough wireframe form in, I'd like to say, September. And so I think, I forget when we first spoke, it was either last week of September, maybe first week of October. But again, still not fully fleshed out requirements, really just working off of, we didn't have any database. We didn't have anything other than pretty rough mock-ups of what it could be. And, we pushed really hard. And so, I think the first users came on board November 22nd, to having over 1,000 paying users by Christmas. But I think the first flood of users happened, November 25th, I think, was when Black Friday was this year,
Yeah, makes
last year.
yeah, makes sense. And you were scouting a lot of agencies and developers when you chose to build the MVP as well, and that's when we met during that scouting phase. So why did you choose to engage with us instead of going with a single developer or some other agency, something like that?
Yeah, very specifically, we had rough wireframes. So again, we didn't have fully baked requirements. We didn't know all the functionality. And what was great working with you guys was that we could still get started knowing that you would help fill in the gaps on the way. And so, the ability to think on your feet, the ability to work with us through, somewhat vague requirements at times, but still, have the flexibility and the dedication to get something out on that timeline. Certainly, I've spent an unbelievable amount of money developing software in my career, and this is probably the fastest that I've ever gotten out a very, very polished MVP.
Hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Makes sense. Hmm. Can you talk a little bit about, so you mentioned you have also worked with a lot of software. Can you talk a little bit about, uh, like, compare your experience with building MVPs before and then the way we built our MVPs? Because that, like, MVP building is something we are proud of. Like, we have done over
Yep.
a dozen MVPs just in the last 1.5 years of SaaS products. So would love to know, like, what was the key differentiation like in the build process?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone all the way from hiring a way too big development shop that wants to, take forever, document every single step, assign, at the outset of a project, like a project manager, a product manager, a development team, a QA, like it's just overkill. I found for an MVP, when really with an MVP, you're just trying to test all you want as quickly as possible is there demand for this product? Right? How can I get a yes or no answer to that? So, from going like the big route of, hiring like a big mainstream development agency all the way to, just hiring a single developer on contract. What I think the differentiator is someone who can help you envision the product, right? So someone who can essentially, when you're hiring someone like yourself, thing that I was really happy with, you're essentially getting the brain of a co-founder on board while you think through some early critical details that you don't have answers to. And that's what I think is rare. That's what I think that I've been really impressed by. That's what allows you to move that quickly. And and kudos to you guys. That's what allows you to actually build successful MVPs as opposed to products that don't work.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks so much for that. And on that note, right, it's not just me, but also our entire team. So can you talk a little bit about our availability? And I think in the first, let's say 6 weeks from the launch of the MVP, right? That's when everything just completely breaks. The night of the MVP, when we launch it, and
Always,
6 weeks
yeah,
afterwards,
always.
right? So what was that experience like after the MVP was launched? Like, hey, you hired these Indian developers to like build you a software, and what happens when they go to sleep? And how was
Yeah.
that handled high level?
Essentially, for anyone who's ever built software, like you know that regardless of what you build and you're ready for launch, 1,000 things are about to break as soon as you launch it, and things aren't going to work as expected, and you're not going to be able to predict them, and your customers are going to be upset, and you're not going to understand why. Things are going to fail silently. It's bound to happen. And if you don't accept that it's bound to happen, it means that you're taking too long to launch a product. And so what was great is that, we launched on the busiest day of the year. We launched on Black Friday and Cyber Monday in the US, and your team was there to support the launch and to very quickly work through all the bugs, work through all sorts of unforeseen issues, to get us to a stable place really quickly. So yeah, I'd say it's not just building an MVP, but I guess for anyone, taking this seriously to build an application that people will actually use, you just have to know that, for 2-3 weeks or more post launch, you're going to uncover so many things that you couldn't think of. And that's where, your team really stepped up and helped us get through that crazy period of launch to actually have a stable application.
Yeah, makes sense. And as for the when these things break, when we have bugs, when we can't make a deadline, what was the communication like? Were you able to always reach out to someone? Did you always have answers for what you were looking for? From your end, what was the communication like when things didn't go as planned?
Yeah, it was great. It was, I mean, all via Slack. We had people, our team spread out everywhere. And so, just being able to post, hey, this broke on Slack, and someone from your team would answer to be like, hey, acknowledge
Yep.
I'm looking at it. Someone else will look at it. Just makes it so much easier. Because it's stressful when something launches and it breaks. It's really stressful. You have paying users. Your first paying users, like arguably the
Yeah.
most important ones, and it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Hmm.
And so, it certainly made, um, my job a lot easier knowing that your team was there to be like, hey, yeah, we're going to get that fixed. In almost any hour of the day, we're going to get that fixed because again, that launch period is everything.
Yeah, yeah. On any hour of the day and also like any day of the week, pretty much for our team. And I'm highlighting that because it was not just me. Like, so when I used to go to sleep, we had someone at least with a high level overlap. So people were asleep only for like, you had no one reachable for like 4 hours of the 24 hours.
Yeah,
Always someone was somewhere.
uh,
Yeah.
100%. Just a great availability. The entire team
Yeah.
was there for us.
Makes sense. Awesome. Perfect. And after launching the MVP, the Supplier HQ MVP, what was the impact of that on Supplier HQ as a company, but also the coaching program, Brooks coaching? What was the impact like?
Yeah. Supplier HQ is thankfully it grew fast and it continues to grow. Um, so I'd say it's been a successful MVP launch. I'd say we're emerging from the MVP stage, and it's getting it's still becoming more and more mature every day as we learn more. But yeah, it's a useful tool, and I think that's the thing that we wanted, which was how can we get something out in the world as quickly as possible to answer a specific question is if we build this, will it provide enough valuable for users to pay money to use it? And we got that answer. And that's really to be able to get that answer from idea to launch to answer the key question of is this a business or should we shut this down in under I don't know 8-9 weeks is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, hmm, One more question, and you can decline to answer as well. Um, at what point had we? So we spent a certain amount of money on the MVP, and do you think you were able to make the ROI on the software itself, excluding the cost of acquisition? Was that possible with the MVP, or did you feel like, hey, we sunk this money and now we have to sunk more money in to get the money we already sunk in back? Like, what was that like from a business and a financial standpoint? Did you get the ROI?
Yeah, I'd say we definitely got the ROI. So again, like it's not just the I mean, here's the thing. I've done this a few times. It's not just the amount of money, it's the amount of time to get to the answer of should I be doing this or not. So like, yes, we made an ROI financially, but more importantly, like I've got things to do. The other people I'm working with have other things to do. More important than like an incremental couple $1,000 here or there is should we be spending like the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months or years on this application? So that's where there's a there's a huge ROI
Hmm.
with regards to your time and the opportunity cost in addition to the financial cost.
Insightful answer. Thanks so much for that. One last question. So after we were done with the MVP, we created an offboarding documentation, or basically a documentation to help you. So you are like a seasoned developer, you're an ex-seasoned developer, and then we also had other developers inside Supplier HQ. We wanted to hand the project over to them. So what was the handover process like? Were people like stuck without any help or without any documentation? What was that like when the project was handed over? Um, was everything completely broken or was it like manageable? What was your experience like with the hand?
Yeah, very easy. So, I mean, to clarify, I'm a very far removed ex amateur developer, and like, I think a question that a lot of people building MVPs with an agency face will, what happens when I need to bring this in house? Right? It's just it's a risk, and it's something you have to think about upfront. And what I will say about you and your team is very professional levels of documentation and support and assisting with the handoff. That is not a small thing to weigh when you're thinking about building an MVP that develops into a company. So yeah, just having the support channel stay up, having the communication line stay up, having clear documentation, having just professional standards for all of that. It matters a lot. It's a lot. The stuff can make or break something. If you can't find a password to your database or or something like that, and you can get caught in those situations, if you're not careful. And that's it's something about working with you guys that I really appreciate. That it's a professional operation.
Awesome. Brad, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for your time. And I but yeah, thanks so much for it. It's been a pleasure. So Supplier HQ was one of, so we have built dozens of projects, but with Supplier HQ, all the stars are aligned. So by the time we took on Supplier HQ, we knew how to build SaaS MVPs. We worked with you were a CTO who did not meddle in the software. You were not like, oh, why are you guys not using a formatter? Why isn't the code formatted this way? Whenever we had any questions, you were always there, and it was never in our way. It was always assisting us. It was like very great from a CTO's perspective, and from the marketing and distribution perspective, the coaching program, it was really great. So we launched something, and instantly we could see people. So me and Pinak, who's the project manager on this, and Sarthak was a developer on this. We were sitting on the call, and we were just seeing people sign up on Stripe. We were like, oh, one person, second person, third person,
Yeah.
and all of it was like very fun for us. It's like one of the first times we got to see it live in front of our eyes, that something we built went like this parabolic in terms of revenue and users. It was very exciting about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's still exciting, still growing. Again, the learning thing for me was, building an MVP, but having the distribution strategy figured out first. That's something that I'm definitely the only way I'm going to do things from now on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great.
Awesome. But thank you so much for your time. That's it. Thanks.
Of course. All right. Yeah. How are things with you guys? You guys busy right